Another thing that I struggle with is the pay. The pay is not great.
Really? I thought, I
Um,
don't know why in my head, like that was gonna be one of the questions I asked you, but I honestly thought that I'm like, since you're more at risk, than any other type of nursing that I think of, maybe psych, I think is the only other thing I could think of off the top of my head that would be like
mhm.
super dangerous. Like I don't know why I thought like this would be like the cream of the crop pay.
Oh.
Now, does it, you think, do you think it has
um,
anything to do with location or it's like across the
that
board,
definitely
it's just
plays
not
that
good?
100% plays a factor, but I think generally flight nursing is pretty underpaid, and I'm new to this, right? So this is still all my year and a half of flight nursing. So there's things I may be getting wrong in this, but flight nursing, along with paramedics, ambulances, is considered transport and not actually critical care medicine. So you can't bill
Wow.
the same way to like Medicare, Medicaid, things of that nature because it's just considered transport. It's not considered medical care. And now there
Wow.
are things that you can do in that change billing. Giving oxygen is one of the examples, but it's only up to a certain point. So I think that aspect really has hindered what paramedics make, EMTs, and flight nursing. Anybody pre-hospital, because it's just a transport. They're not
Mm,
going to be able to get reimbursed in the same way as somebody in the hospital or surgery or things like that. Um,
gotcha.
so that's one factor. But there are some places that pay decent, but I still think they're not up to the risk that we take on, the procedures that we can do. We can intubate, we can do pericardiocentesis, we can do finger
Oh,
thoracostomies.
really?
We carry a whole slew of medications that we get to decide when to give,
Mm-hmm.
based on protocols. But still, it's just me and one other partner that we get to make those decisions. So there is a lot of care that we provide that just I don't feel like they were compensated for well.
Now, when you mention like one other partner, is it you
Mm-hmm.
and another flight nurse, or is it like you and a PA? Is it you and like what kind of provider is the second person?
So typically, how the University of Cincinnati, where I'm at now, does it, they're one of the few programs that fly with residents. So
Oh,
we fly so we fly two configurations. We fly nurse resident, and they're usually a second year emergency medicine resident up to a fourth year emergency medicine resident. Or the other configuration would be a nurse nurse. So it's two nurses. We are both dual certified in paramedicine as well. So we're a nurse paramedic licensure, um, and both have their benefits. I love flying with other nurses just because the flow of everything is so smooth. We think alike. It's a different aspect. But I also love flying with the residents too because they've gone through a lot of medical school. They have some thinking and processes that are different than how nurses typically think about things. So both are
mm,
good, but I do prefer the nurse shifts better. They're a lot more fun. And
okay.
these residents, they don't have a lot of training to the aircraft.
Mhm.
So oftentimes logistically it can be a little more challenging. Um, they went through medical school, and that's great. I'm sure it's hard, and there's a lot of things that go with it, but they also don't have a lot of hands-on experience in hospitals and in medicine. So there's some of those things that just the flow of things can be a little bit different. And I love it. I actually enjoy working with the residents quite a bit, and there's a lot of really good residents that I would hands down let them fly me any day. But there can be some challenging things with it too. My partner changes frequently. I don't get to choose my partner. We don't work together days in a row, so I don't get that same flow state with them as easy. But there's a lot of good things that come from it too.
Okay. What are your hours like typically?
So we are hospital based and union based. So our hours are 12-hour shifts. So get there at
Okay.
6:30 in the morning. Done at 7 o'clock, um, and then we also have an 11 to 11 shift, and then a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now most of
Okay.
those are dependent on when flights come in because you can be, that again going back to my first shift off orientation. I think it was 6:54 that call came in for the woman who had the ectopic rupture, and so I
At
didn't
the end
I
of your
didn't get
shift?
home. Yep, and you take it like there's nobody else
Oh
coming in.
my
You can't pass it
God.
off. Some of these bases it's really challenging. So you go, and I don't think we didn't
Wow.
get back to base till 9 o'clock. We had to clean the aircraft. There was blood everywhere and all sorts of stuff. So I don't think I got out of there till after 10 p.m. So
Wow.
it varies day to day, and you never know what you're going to get called for. But the typical is 12 and a half hour shift.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of your like your experience in general, what would you say is like the craziest thing that you've ever experienced as a flight nurse?
Tough question. um, One of the craziest and coolest just because she survived and got discharged to rehab facility, is doing well, but was a woman kind of out in the hills, like really far reaches of our area, where we have enough fuel to fly to. Um, we landed in some hills in this dirt gravel parking lot. We went into the back of this squad, so we call squad the ambulance, and there's a woman there who has air coming out of her forehead. She is her
An
face looks
arrow?
like, say again,
A literal
air,
arrow. Oh, air?
air, yeah, air bubbling out of her forehead. Um, Her face, the only way that I can describe her face was like a pumpkin, bleeding, scratches everywhere, just swollen shut, paraorbital edema, ecchymosis, just and she's pretty messed up. She unfortunately had been on some drugs and was driving with somebody and said, "Hey, watch this," as she proceeded to jump out the window and kind of tanked headfirst into the asphalt. And the road was a 50-mile-an-hour road, so we have to anticipate somewhere around that speed. But
Oh
she
my
had neck
gosh.
fractures. She had every facial. She had Lefort 1, 2, and 3 fractures. And I remember learning about those in nursing school, and they were like, "Yeah, these are really rare. You may never see one." She had all 3. Like, she was just in a bad way. Thankfully, we didn't have to
She was jacked
do.
up.
What's that?
I said she was jacked up.
She was, yeah. Thankfully, we didn't have to cut her neck. We didn't have to do a front of the neck access to oxygenate. We were able to get the airway, and we fought her with blood and ketamine because she was just so agitated. Hypertonic saline. We fought her the whole way, and that was probably a 45-minute flight, maybe a little bit less. I can't remember for sure. It felt like a long time though. But got her there, and she had, I think, every bone in her face was fractured. She was not well. But she got discharged from the hospital a month after I dropped her off, and she went to a nursing rehab facility, and I think she's doing well. She got a trach because they had to wire her jaw shut and do a ton of facial surgeries. But
Yeah.
just really cool to see somebody so sick kind of be able to come out of it. So you kind of can never judge. You see somebody really sick, and I think oftentimes I thought I've gotten really good at it, kind of seeing who was going to live and who's going to die. But those ones will surprise you, and so that one was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Some other crazy ones, sad ones. You walk in, some of these outlying hospitals, they do the best they can, and they play a very key role in so much of medicine. But their education may not always be up to par. And so walked into the cath lab, and there was a woman there intubated, and they had intubated her with rocuronium, which lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. And they gave her a sedative at the time of intubation, which I think they probably used propofol or something very short term, but they had never given any more sedation. And so this poor woman was paralyzed, but not sedated. So she was probably aware of her situation and aware that she was intubated, aware of everything going on, but completely unable to move.
Wow.
It's such a scary thought. And that's definitely one of the things you got to consider. It's possible that I've done that before. I do my very best not to, but it can happen. And so it's tough when you see that happen to somebody. That's one of the hard things with flight nursing is I don't get a lot of follow-up on patients. So I don't know when it ended up happening to her. But tough to see that. You never want to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a bunch, it's fun. It's enjoyable.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. I can't even imagine. I remember always hearing that flight, like giving reports of flight nurses is like top tier craziest things that you have to do as a nurse. Like, is there
Yeah.
anything that you feel like if someone is giving, if I was giving a report to you,
Hmm.
are there any like do's and don'ts like that you in particular, or is it just the basics? Like, I don't need to hear
The
like
S
cut
bar,
the tea.
the S bar is great.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
it covers all your bases. Things that we always typically look to know is times that they were intubated, what times meds were
Mhm.
pushed, just because then we can follow up and hopefully give some sedation with things. If we're doing neuro exams, but they got rock 10 minutes before, it's good to know those things so that we can kind of, calculate those. Um, just being thorough, it's always funny. There was a certain, call that I went on to, one of these well-lit scene calls in the hospital, where this poor woman woke up early in the morning. She had already been there for, I think, pneumonia, something like that. She woke up early in the morning, had a lot of respiratory distress, and so they started her on BiPAP. They scanned her, did everything. They found some information that they didn't share with us. So we came in, we talked to the nurse. The doctor's like nowhere to be seen. This nurse had just come on, which is kind of a story we get frequently. Like, oh, I just took over the patient. May or may not be true, but
May or not be true.
may or not be true. So we can check blood. We've got EPOC, where we can look at blood gases and some other chemistries. So we checked blood. She was doing really well on BiPAP. The numbers looked good. We decided that she's well enough to continue transferring her on BiPAP. So we fly her to the hospital. We get back. I think we drop her off in the CVICU, if I'm remembering correctly. Roll through the door. We get her transferred over, and the doc walks in, and she goes, "Why would you transfer somebody with an esophageal rupture on BiPAP?" And we're like, "Excuse me? What do you mean?" Like, we
What?
had no
I
idea.
beg your pardon?
Yeah, so I don't know how, but she had an esophageal rupture. And BiPAP, some of that air tends to go down the esophagus. They did a
Right.
scan, and she had a bunch of free air across her mediastinum, just across her chest. She had crepitus, like you learn in nursing school.
Right.
Just crazy things. So, some of those things would be important, because at that point in time we would have made the decision to intubate, so we knew all the air was going into the lungs, and we could monitor things like that. But we had no idea. I guess we should have looked through our scans better. It could definitely fall on us, and we should have done more due diligence in that. The responsibility is always ours
Mhm.
to find out that stuff. But it would be, it's nice to know those critical pieces of information.
Yeah.
But they did the best they can, and so that's tough. And I definitely I recognize those times too. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess to everyone out there, if you are giving reports of flight nurse, be thorough. As
yeah,
thorough as
and
you can be.
it's tough, because there's these patients are critical, and the doc just wants to get them out of there as fast as they can, and you don't have the resources to
Yeah.
care for them. You're busy with other patients, so I get it. I've been there before. It's hard. I've dumped patients and given terrible reports to the ICUs when I send up patients from the ED.
Mhm.
So I've been there.
I mean, that's good because I feel like sometimes, nursing, it's not common for, I feel like, people to, obviously start off with like, you're like standing on one leg barely, you don't know what you're doing and you're still novice, and then you become an expert, and then you are so crappy to other people as if you never went through it. I feel like,
Yeah,
so it's good that
yeah,
you are able to recognize that and won't kind of hold it against people, that's really
yeah.
good.
I've been there. One of my first early ED days, I tried to send a patient up to the floor. I don't remember. I don't remember, but high blood pressure, right? And it was documented high, and I had no clue that the floor couldn't take anybody with blood pressures over this number. And so I called, gave a report, and then shortly after, the charge nurse called me and just ripped me a new one. She was pretty rude to me, and so
Mhm.
I do my best to remember that everybody starts somewhere. Everybody's doing the best they can. Nobody's trying to hurt anybody, especially in nursing. Like, we give up so much to try to take care of our patients. So if we can all do better to just remember that we're all working together and we're all a team, and we're not perfect, nobody is, then I think The hospital would be a better place. Helicopter would be a better place. We could do
Yeah.
better.
Last question.
Yeah.
Um, do you ever like, is it anything in your training where you have to actually be a pilot? Like, what if something happens? Are you qualified to do that? Is that part of the scope of practice in terms of being certified? No. Not
Um,
exactly.
the long answer is no. Or sorry, the short answer is no. The long
Okay.
answer is it probably depends on how interested you are in it. Depends on your pilots. Some pilots, they'll say, don't touch anything. Don't touch the GPS. Don't touch the comms. Just do as little as possible. Sit here, look for objects. I want you to be part of the team to make sure that we fly safe, but don't touch anything. Then I've got other pilots who they're like, okay, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to change my heading and my altimeter, and this is going to help change my speed, or this is going to take me to here. They let me put in coordinates to the scenes, or various things like that. And so I've been curious about it. So I've got a good pilot that I work with he's been awesome and kind of just letting me be a little bit of a right hand man. Obviously, we can't fly. We're not certified to do that. But I've learned a ton from him. Learning how the helicopter works is probably important to know. Just because I fly in it, I'm a part of the crew. Like, nobody crashes in compartments. Like, we all crash together if that's going to be the case. So I want to know as much as I can about how this machine works, because it's crazy. It's unlike any other machine that we as human species work on or work with. The most power that it takes is when hovering and going slow. And that's very opposite of what most things do. Most things take little energy when they're going slow, but hovering is one of the things that takes the most power, the most horsepower. So just knowing all these little things truly make you better, right? They make you safer. And so I want to know if my pilot has some sort of event in the air, which has happened to, unfortunate crews, what can I do, if anything, to try to better my circumstances? And so I'll ask these questions. We'll go through procedures. If we don't have a patient in the back, we'll kind of go through some of that stuff. But it really is up to the person and up to the pilot. There's no formal training on it. We've kind of tried to get a little bit of that, but we've kind of been denied that request in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is actually
so lots of prayer, lots of hopes. Oh yeah, go ahead.
For sure. No, for sure. Like, literally, yes, for sure. Like, definitely keep flight nurses covered under prayer.
I'd be calling up one of our other pilots and be like, all right, how do I fly this thing? Because there's a lot of things you can do that aren't just the manual controls. There's the backup software and flight systems. So you can work with a lot of those. So I'd be calling a pilot and saying, hey, I need your help now.
My last question is, would you ever, like, being a flight nurse, are you certified to, let's say, do commercial flights as well, or is it just being on a helicopter?
Or is that something certified to do commercial flights in what way? Because I'm not familiar, and I could be wrong on this for sure, so let me know if I am, but I don't know that there are nurses that are paid or their job is to fly commercially. So I mean, any nurse can act if you're on a plane going somewhere and something happens. Like, that's just part of the Good Samaritan laws, I believe. As long as you're acting within your scope and your knowledge, you're going to be okay. But as far as other jobs, I'm not too familiar with those.
I'm not either. I don't know if I know that there is the Good Samaritan law. Like, I've been on flights where they have asked, and I'm like, yes, I'm not why, but I didn't know if I didn't know if there was I guess maybe that was a rumor I heard, where like there are like some like flight nurses that are solely just on commercial flights, like they can just fly if something happens or whatever. But I was like, I don't know if that's a rumor, not a rumor, but
I don't know. That very well could be. Maybe on some of those really long, like, transatlantic flights and super bougie airplanes, maybe they've got something. I don't know.
Perhaps
but that would be cool.
A little,
Mm-hmm.
a little Dubai kind of flight. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I guess then who knows if there are real commercial flight nurses.
If they're out there, let us know. We both want to know.
Okay, and maybe they get paid better. Okay,
May-
then.
maybe.
um, would you actually do anything different ever in nursing? Would you ever change it up and be like, all right, I'm done with flight nursing, or no?
I would. I've got a family. I've got 2 kids, one on the way.
Oh,
Yeah, thank
congratulations!
you. Yeah, due February. So we're
All
excited.
right.
And so I don't see myself doing this forever. I love it for
Okay.
now. I want to keep doing it for the near future, but I think I'll eventually go back to school and probably get my NP and see where that
Okay.
takes me. But I'm undecided at this point for sure, and I love where I'm at. I love what I'm doing, and I still feel like I've got tons of room to grow in flight nursing. Like a year and a half is not time to learn it all, know it all, see it all. I don't know if you'll ever get there, but um, that's why I'm good where I'm at for now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for
of
sharing your
course.
knowledge
Yeah,
on flight
thanks for
nursing.
having
I'm
me.
hoping that, of course, um, I'm hoping that whoever sees this and is interested, kind of gets a little bit more insight, as to what it's like being a flight nurse. I certainly did learn more than what I thought I would learn. I always just thought it was like just so cool, but like learning a few of the things that you said, I'm like, maybe not. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm good on the ground where I'm at. But thank you
yeah.
so much.
No, it's
I for your safety, for sure, always.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it for sure. If anybody's interested and has questions, I'm always I don't know if you want to connect them to me if they reach out to you, but I'm happy
If
to
you
do
want to
that.
share your
I
information now, go ahead, and I will put it on the screen, but if you want
Sounds
to share
good.
your
I'll
information, go ahead.
I'll send it to you and figure out some way
All
I can
right.
have it be a little bit
Yeah, no
anonymous,
problem.
but like I'm happy to help people out because it's we're a community and we're all just trying to do better, right? So happy to help.
All right. I love a helping hand as a nurse. I love that. But thank you so much for
Of
joining me
course. Thank
and
you.
sharing your insight. No problem. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Nurse Aspect, where we assess and evaluate. Quick question: are we connected? The Nurse Aspect podcast is available across all major platforms or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you ever want to be on the show, or if you have questions, comments, and concerns, email me at thenurseaspect@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at The Nurse Aspect or on TikTok at The Nurse Aspect for nursing nonsense and more. Until next time, nurse on, assess, and evaluate. Omega XD.